And we are live. Welcome to another episode of Business Focus Live with me, John, where we talk about business related topics as well as news from here around the world. If you're new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe and let's get started. And we're back. Thank you again for joining me today. So, in this week's live stream, we'll be talking about several interesting topics that has happened in the past week or so. So, first is we'll be talking about the company EVGA, makers of GPUs or graphics cards. In particular, there was a recent issue with regards to a game that Amazon produced, and then it has a severe effect to your GPU to the point that it break your GPU, which it's not usable anymore. But what's interesting, what EVGA did, even though it's not their fault, but they did something remarkable for a company of this scale. We'll talk about that. Next is we'll be talking about at what lengths people would do just to be able to mine crypto in this case, but there was a twist in the story, so we'll talk about that in a bit also. Next, we have EA's ongoing issue. If it's not a game issue, then there was the recent report where their database were hacked by hackers, and they were trying to ransom those data. And if they didn't pay, they were going to leak the data. And EA's not playing ball with them, so the hackers did what they could do, which is leak the data. Obviously, this does not bode well if you're EA or any company at that. Talk about that as well. Next is one of the company that I'm pretty excited about in terms of offering something that a consumer would be interested in. A company is offering a modular laptop wherein you get to choose what type of features will be integrated in your laptop or device in this case. So we'll talk about that in detail. And next is what's funny, we've talked about before where the space race between Elon Musk's SpaceX and then you have Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin company, trying to get to space first to I won't say colonize it, but offer it as a travel destination. And in the case of Blue Origin, if you were to take a closer look in their spaceship, it resembles a we'll talk about that as well. Anyway, and lastly, we'll be talking about the Man of Steel himself, Mr. Henry Cavill. There have been rumors that he'll be not donning the cape anymore, and obviously the other companies, like in this case Marvel or the MCU or Marvel Studios, is trying to take advantage of this. Now, obviously, if you're Henry Cavill, you're in high demand, so you'll take that the opportunity here. So we'll go into detail about that one. Anyway, so let's start off. So as mentioned regarding the GPU issue, especially in the RTX 3090, so there have been reports that many GPUs, in particular EVGA, has experienced a lot of breaking issues for the gaming community, and whether it's an isolated, a rarity, but it's got something to do with Amazon's New World MMO game. So according to PCGamer.com, where was it? Yeah, so EVGA, the company, has confirmed that one of its GeForce RTX 3090 cards have been killed by issues related to the New World MMO. And all failed 3090s are going to replace, which is kind of tremendous if you think about it. A company is going to do you good as a consumer if it failed. Now, obviously, you could play with technicalities and say, it was not the fault of the manufacturing company, and it was actually, in this case, you can blame Amazon for not testing out the game itself. Obviously, in this type of MMO game, it's going to eat up a lot of resources, and obviously, if it goes a certain threshold, it can damage a PC, in this case a GPU. And but what's interesting is Amazon Game Studios, the developer of the game as mentioned, is now going to release a hotfix which will clamp down on the FPS or frames per second in the menu, which attributes to the crashing of the GPU. And take note, Obviously, a GPU in the RTX 3090 series is going to cost you a lot of money, in the sum of $2,000. Actually, with the shortage of the GPU still in the market, it's above 2,000 still. So the company EVGA, what they're doing for their consumers is a top-notch strategy. Obviously, it's going to cost them in the short run, but in the long run, more people would see, if companies like EVGA can do this, why other companies can do that if the situation were to arise, and so forth. What's interesting here, according to one of a YouTuber here, from Jay's 2 Cent, Jason Langevin, he mentioned that he contacted people in EVGA. They also confirmed that there has been cross-shipping RMA products out to card owners already. So if your GPUs were fried, they're going to replace it, which is pretty remarkable. And I followed Jay's 2 Cents channel over course of several years already. So is it a smart move, since it's going to cost the company more than if they were to just say it's not their fault and leave it at that? But obviously, this is going to be a long-term benefit for the company as well as for the consumer when they look back, which companies did them well as a gaming community. Then EVJ would be at the top of the list, as mentioned here. And even Mr. Langvin mentioned in his Twitter that other GPUs have been affected by the said issue here, and he reports that users of AMD GPUs as well as others NVIDIA users have experienced the brick cards because of the game. So it's not just in one platform but in both platforms as well. So it's pretty remarkable how a game can break a GPU at this scale and so forth. Obviously, for the company, the game makers themselves, they did not see any evidence, or they did not do any extensive research or testing to determine how widespread the issue is. But obviously, for Amazon, it's a very simple, quick fix. You just need updates for this one. But the damage has been done already. That is it a popular game? Obviously, a lot of people are playing now. Obviously, people will be cautious in terms of moving forward with regards to the game at hand here. Anyway, speaking of, I think we were talking about technology still in the realm of PCs. The next topic here is something I applaud the company for making this business model in a sense. I mean, it's not the first company to do this, but hopefully they could gain more traction in terms of what they're trying to achieve. So in terms of building a modular laptop is something that if you can replicate what your experience in the desktop world can do for you, obviously that would be tremendous here, and being portable and all. According to PCGamer.com again, the company, the first totally modular Intel laptop is now available for shipping, and hoping that it is a success. So the company we're talking about is Frameworks company. So let's see here. So it's a first fully modular laptop, as mentioned. So hopefully it can be more of a success than just a fad or a flop. Hopefully not. So according to company Framework, they mentioned that there have been pre-orders for batch 1, which will be delivered this month, and hopefully continue to ship out from warehouse each day. Well, where batch 2 will start shipments on August next month, or very soon after that. So the question here is, will there be a demand for modular laptops? Now, obviously, in my personal experience, I would always like to have the option of upgrading certain components, whether it's in the GPU, can the motherboard be replaced, the battery, the SSD, storage card, your RAM stick, on and on and on. And obviously, for many laptop manufacturers, they're very apprehensive because obviously there's proprietary technology, especially for Apple. They don't want you tinkering with it. And again, it goes to the issue of right to repair, but that's another issue altogether. Anyway, according to the company, they mentioned that Framework laptop is a prime example of how manufacturer can and should embrace right to repair, because it just makes sense, because if you buy a product, consumers has should have the right to be able to do whatever they please, because they own it. It's not the company who owns it. That's why I'm very apprehensive if companies will always put a software limitation in your devices, whether it's been your smartphone, laptops, or in this case even in Tesla's vehicles, so that you cannot maximize its utility. You have to pay an additional fee to be able to utilize those features as mentioned, which is not a very enjoyable experience if you're a consumer here. As mentioned, a fully modular laptop, meaning from the motherboard to the I/O inputs outputs, and there are 4 expansion ports, meaning you can choose from a USB Type C module, or you can combine whether USB C, Type A, or even the display port, HDMI, or even a micro SD slot card. So it depends on your preferences, type of job, based on your need. So you can pick and choose rather than you'll be limited to just, typically you have to pay top dollars to get the features that you want, and then some features that you don't need, maybe you could do away here. What's interesting in they're offering in terms of storage from 250 gigabytes of storage all the way to 1 terabytes of storage. So obviously they're leveraging also the technology of connectivity with USB 3.2 Gen 2 interface. So, and also the storage expansion cards of sequential read from up to 1000 megabytes, so 1 terabytes. So it depends on your preferences. If you need fast transfer of data, if you're doing, let's say, video editing or photo shoots, obviously you'd prefer something more robust here. Now obviously not all is good and dandy here. There are always downsides to any technology that you're incorporating here, and one of these instances is obviously don't expect this modularity to be considered as a gaming laptop, because it does not support a discrete GPU, so it's still tied up to what the motherboard can utilize here. And another thing is the CPU is attached to the motherboard, so you cannot just simply open the motherboard chassis and then replace the CPU here. So upgrading a processor means a whole swap of your motherboard. So it's still not yet fully modular in a sense, but you still have more options than typical laptops here. So what they're offering here is introductory model of a 13-inch display with better than HD 2256 by 1504 resolution here, powered by an Intel 11th Gen Tiger Lake processor. So they have 3 variants here: an i7-1185G7, an i7-1165G7, or an i5-1135G7 here. All of them have onboard XE graphics here. So you want to take a look at the specs if it meets your criteria, or you want to look at somewhere else or a different brand here. What's interesting here, the pricing here starts at $999 or around 50,000 pesos here. So which is not pretty expensive, but it's not super affordable, so, or not cheap in this case. But again, at least it gives you the option or the flexibility of choosing if you can afford it. Is this the options or features that you need in your laptops? Then go right ahead, and at least you're paying what you get. You're getting what you paid for is what I'm trying to say here. Anyway, next we have, as mentioned, we're talking about some people they go to extreme lengths to mine for cryptocurrency, right? And what's interesting, in Ukraine, they used PS4 devices or slim devices, as much as less than 4,000 devices, to do the same thing. But obviously, PS4 games may not be as powerful as an RTX 3090 and so forth, right? But the twist here is it wasn't actually mining for cryptocurrency. So once we get into it, you'll be surprised as to what was the main purpose here. Anyway, according to notebookcheck.net, they mentioned that they were alleged crypto mining currency operating in their area, which to their surprise, that it was actually more related to FIFA games, FIFA Ultimate Team coins, if you're familiar. So a Ukrainian crypto mining setup was used using PS4 slims for for mining, not crypto, but more on for FIFA Ultimate Team coins, which kind of got me thinking, why would people go to those extreme lengths, which we'll discuss in a bit regarding the game itself. Now, when authorities found out about this, now obviously using a lot of PS4 devices, similar to when you're using cryptocurrency, eats up a lot of electricity, which is not good for many reasons. That's why China is banning cryptocurrencies here. Anyway, the purpose of the setup here is to mine the FIFA Ultimate Team coins, which is, if you're familiar with playing FIFA, EA makes it difficult for you to grind your way to get. Obviously, you want to get the best players in the world to compete in, uh, player versus player PvP around the world. And obviously, they've been criticized for doing this plot of this manipulistic mining, and some would say gambling components in it, to the point that, in this situation, an individual or groups of individual are trying to find loopholes in terms of how to gain the system, so that they can get the best cards and sell it in the market for people to buy. So that, for example, if I'm a gamer, I would be interested to buy it rather than grind it out, which beats the whole point of why would I play the game in the first place, if I have to go to extreme lengths just to be able to enjoy the game. And obviously, the crime that the individuals that they did here was only stealing power from the grid, nothing too heinous about it. But obviously, the point of the matter is, the FIFA Ultimate Team coins is the main issue here, rather than people finding ways to mine it or to grind for them to get a chance, to have a chance to get a good or even great player here. So if you're a player, you don't even know what are the chances here, because it's not regulated. So even in casinos, you are able to find out what are the chances of you winning the jackpot here, because it's regulated by the government. But in this case, it's not regulated, because they're saying it's not gambling, and it's not monitored by the governments here, because it's rated for E for everyone, so anyone could play it. So obviously, they're targeting uh, young children who are, more vulnerable, because they're excited to play their favorite players here, whether it's Ronaldo, Messi, or Neymar, and so forth, right? And it gives this false sense of euphoria if you get a good player, but you have to spend a lot of money, which, a whole lot of can of worms that, the government has to take it a look at into, because if it gets any worse, people's life has been ruined because of, being irresponsible. Obviously, the parents don't know that's happening, kids' lives are ruined, and then the company who makes millions and even billions obviously want to continue proliferating these types of practice. Well, hopefully it can be resolved sooner rather than later here. Anyway, so continuing with the team with EA here. Now, obviously, EA is not doing themselves any favor with their business practices of how they deal with their customers by, the FIFA Ultimate Team strategy, and then, the NFL Madden, where they just copy and paste the game and then sell it to the next year after year, and sell it as a new game itself. Why should one buy their products if it's just a carbon copy of the previous one? And there has been evidence that shows that, they just released a reproduced game here. Anyway, I don't know if that's related to that, but because they've been, they're a high profile company, a lot of companies are, or in this case, hackers are looking for any vulnerabilities to the company, and lo and behold, they were able to find one, and they were able to get a substantial uh, information. I think, how much was it? Gigabytes worth of data were stolen in their database here. Now, it goes to show that how vulnerable systems are, even big multi-billion companies, if they're not protected, it can be easily hacked. Now, obviously, if you're an individual, there's no lesser value, but for high profile companies, whether EA, Activision, or even I look at companies like Naughty Dog, or any publisher game, right? If they were to penetrate your database here and get vital information, they could, hold you hostage and, for ransom, which is what they were planning to do here. Anyway, according to the article here at pcgamer.com, hackers began leaking stolen data after Vice refuses to help them blackmail EA here. Now, obviously, the point of the matter here is once they hack the system and got information data, they want to sell it for ransom for any company that they've hacked. Well, obviously, EA here is not playing ball because they don't want to be beholden to the company or to the hackers themselves, because if this were to happen in the first place, and it could happen over and over again. But what's interesting here, the hackers wrote that they said a few weeks ago they sent an email for ransom EA, meaning no pun intended, to EA, but then did not get any response. So they will be posting the source code if they didn't comply with their ransom. And as I mentioned, excuse me, it was reported that it saw a portion of its database, I think 1.3 gigabytes of cache was released by the hackers that includes references to EA's internal tools and origin, as well as EA's digital storefront. And obviously, despite the escalation, you can say EA has made it clear that it's not going to play ball with them, and obviously it's just going to escalate here, whether the government can catch those hackers or the hackers release those vital data, whatever is more important to EA. Obviously that's the main issue here. Now, is it right hacking companies information here? Obviously it's not. You don't want to encourage this practice, and obviously hackers can be emboldened to be more to go after other companies as well. But then of the day is obviously companies has to be aware that in this digital revolution that we're encountering, the more connectivity that we are, it's easier to communicate. But the problem is, how do you protect yourself, not just through physical uh, limitation, but in the digital world itself. And it's not just EA who has encountered this difficult dilemma, as mentioned. You also have CD Projekt Red, who encountered the same result or same scenario earlier this year, where their source code for their game Cyberpunk 2077. But if you notice, both of those companies were not in good terms with the gaming community in terms of how they treated, when they released Cyberpunk 2077 in the first place. But nonetheless, so both of their actions, they deem they will not give in to the demands nor negotiate with those hackers. Now, obviously, who will win at the end? Only time can tell. Hopefully, they can, better improve their security so that things like this don't happen. Imagine if Sony were to get hacked, or even Microsoft were to get hacked, or government facilities were hacked. Vital information, social security information of individuals of a particular nation were stolen. Right? One can imagine the horror that you will encounter if this were to happen here. Anyway, so hoping for the best for for those companies. Anyway, sticking with going into space, we mentioned earlier that the companies, whether it's SpaceX or in this case Blue Origin, are trying to convince us that the next destination that we should go is not in other countries, not in beaches or theme parks or whatnot. It's in outer space, or close to outer space at that. Anyway, but what's interesting here is, according to businessinsider.com, they mentioned the article says that there is a very solid engineering reason why Jeff Bezos' rocket looks exactly like, that. Let me show you to better explain. Yeah, this one. Okay, so if you notice, it looks peculiarly similar to a particular genitalia of sorts. So, why is that so? And when I read this article, I was thinking to myself, is this true? Does it look like actually somewhat? And obviously, you want to be careful on how people perceive your product, or in this case, your spaceship here. So it flew the founder, I think, a few days ago or a week or two ago to its success, right? So congratulations to them. But in terms of its new Shepherd rockets, what do they call this? Tumescent shape was low-hanging fruit to social media users who were quick to point out, which you can see it somewhat, that it crafts a phallic design of sorts. So obviously, if you're trying to market this product, it's going to be plastered all over the magazine, news sites, and so forth. So I don't know if they could make some improvement to this one or change the aesthetics or how the shape is presented here. Anyway, so expert is saying that this suborbital sausage fest was anything but accidental. Obviously, if you're an engineer, there's a reason why they made the ship here designed the way it is. So it's not by accident here. So if we were to take a closer look, the characteristic shape was designed to optimize the cabin, so it can uh, accommodate 6 passengers in all aspects. So it's a rounded shape, and then it can maximize the racket stability. So obviously any angular shape at the top would make it more, what do you call this, would create more drag, so more spending more fuel, which is not ideal. And obviously the reason here is to maximize rocket stability when coming back to Earth, so when it's trying to land. So obviously you need a very stable design, which is what they did here. Now, what's interesting here, according to Llanos, who told Insider, the main reason the design looks like this is because Jeff Bezos' first goal is to send people to space. So everything revolves around having 4 to 6 people in the cabin, so maximizing cabin volume here. Now, was it unintentional that the design looks like the way it is? Then Mr. Bezos noticed this when they were testing this in their facility. I'm sure he saw it. A lot of people saw it, but did they have time to change it? Who knows? But the question here is, Jeff also wanted to have the biggest window in space so people have an awesome experience. So meaning their goals was very simple: to get a effective rocket ship that can get people into space safely and bring them down safely as well. Now, obviously, the design may have something less, more improvement needs to be improved upon it. Maybe they can do that in their next iteration here. And obviously, increasing the size of the capsule was important here, so that they can maximize the space that that you're given here. Now, even though it resembles a particular male genitalia here, but it is what it is. Now, whether people can make fun of it or so, at least it's a selling point that people will, it will get people's attention here. Anyway, the point here is the capsule's design also is meant for reducing drag. So just like in a sports car on the ground, you want less drag so that it can peer through the air, because obviously the higher you want to go, there's more drag that's going to pull you down on Earth. And it's not going to be easy, but they were able to achieve it. So congratulations to them. And obviously the skinnier design helps the rocket reach its suborbit. So it's not technically in outer space, but it's somewhere on the fringes of our outer space. Outer space? I don't know what's the term, but it's on the fringes of our atmosphere, so to speak. Right. So obviously, the higher the space that you want to reach, it requires more propellant in your rocket, so you can reach higher threshold here. And obviously, they were able to find a solution in terms of design. Hopefully, they can make some more improvements in their next iteration here. And obviously, their next rocket, it's going to be named the New Glenn, which is looking more like a bullet rather than a male genitalia here. So I'm sure they've already taken that into account, so that at least they have a successful test flight and they can move forward from here. And the goal of the new rocket is to design to go into orbit and back into planet Earth here. So good luck to them. So is it worth it to go outer space? I think, how much did they spend? Millions of dollars? I could have just bought a new car, a new house, or maybe go to a different country. But if you have excess money here, go right ahead, right? You'd be, you can just imagine like the movie of Stanley Kubrick's where he was showcasing, you know, 30, 50, 40, 50 years ago, the space station revolving around Earth, people could just visit there. And then if they want to go to the moon, maybe go to Mars or different planetary systems, you know, it's easier then. But can we do that in our lifetime? Maybe not. But kudos to Elon Musk for thinking ahead, as well as for Jeff Bezos, trying to colonize space. Hopefully. Anyway, finally for our last story here. So we were talking about how the Man of Steel. There have been rumors, the on and off again relationship between Warner Brothers and Mr. Cavill. Now, for my taste, I think Henry Cavill is the epitomizes what the Man of Steel should represent, right? I don't think it would be difficult to find a different person playing the same character here. Now, obviously, you have Christopher Reeve, who donned the cape early on. Then the terrible flop that Brandon Routh tried to replicate. Then you have Henry Cavill that did justice to the character. Then the debacle, which is the what I call this, the Justice League, and then they tried to reboot it, and then there were plans of portraying a black Superman, which I haven't read in the comics, so they're trying to introduce that now. But either way, you have Henry Cavill, one of the most beloved or popular actors in our current generation, having been seen in a lot of films. You have The Man from Uncle is one. Then he was on the latest Mission Impossible Fallout series, and then he has a Netflix series, The Witcher, which I've watched, I've enjoyed. I'm looking forward to the second season, so stay tuned for that one. Anyway, but the point of the matter, I don't know what's wrong with Warner Brothers. Why are they not capitalizing on his fame and recognition that a lot of people are enamored with him? It's not just the male segment, but also the female segments. He's good looking and everything. So why not capitalize on it rather than going back and forth? Should we cast him as the next? Should we continue with the story with the Superman, or start with a new one? But I digress. But that's not the point here. What's interesting here is, where was it? There you go. What's interesting here, since Warner Brothers can get their act together, obviously other companies or studios are looking ways to grab attention. And in this case, swoop in Marvel Studios, who's trying to talk to Mr. Cavill here in terms of playing a role, a superhero role in the MCU universe. Now, there were rumors that he could play the role of Great Britain, since he's a British citizen. Does it make sense? The Great Britain character is not as popular compared to, let's say, to other Marvel characters that was presented before. But still, so they're trying to find ways to introduce him into the MCU universe. So good luck to them. And obviously, there's a big opportunity, cashing in on his popularity in terms of recognition, and obviously in terms of acting chop, right? Actually, there was a video of him which went viral when he was trying to build a PC. Was it water cooled? I can't remember. I saw Bitwit watching him building a PC, and there were millions of people interested to watch how a big star or actor, in this case Mr. Cavill, can be just a regular person trying to build a PC here. But anyway, so how busy is Mr. Cavill here? Just to give you an example. So there's going to be a reboot for the Highlander. So there can be only one. So I'm looking for how they're going to present that to the current generation here, when the TV series was shown way back in the 90s when I was still young back then. And then there's another film where he'll be the leading role. Matthew Vaughn's new spy franchise, Argyle. Is it Argyle? And then he's going to reprise his character roles, Sherlock Holmes and Enola Holmes Part 2, which, by the way, I watched the first one. It was okay. It was interesting. So it just goes to show you how busy the actor is. So trying to line up, a film that he was supposed to, I think, cameo in Shazam in the first one. So it would have been tremendous, but obviously Warner Brothers dropped the ball here. Not in terms of as a decision maker. I don't know how you cannot capitalize on the popularity of those characters here. And as of the current situation, the situation between Mr. Henry Cavill and Warner Brothers is still a bit frosty. So obviously, it's a loss for Warner Brothers, and it's a coup for Marvel Studios, or in this case Disney, if they're able to get Henry Cavill on board. So you can just imagine, on one side you already had Superman, then he'll be playing a different superhero character, because they can work it out in terms of whether it's differences, ideas, or whatnots, to use. There's several story plot lines for the character Superman. Especially, I think the animated did much better in terms of the actual live Superman films, right? I mean, I've watched, I think, the Apocalypse Now. I think, what was the other the title, the Batman, where Batman and Superman were public enemy number one, and they're trying to go on this adventure. That was another interesting one. And then Superman All Stars was another one. And then Superman the Red Sun. Oh, that's another storyline wherein Superman, what if Superman was born in Russia? So they would create another new storyline. So there's a lot of potentiality for the character Superman, and you have to get the star correctly. Otherwise, people will not buy in that does he exude the super qualities of what Superman is, of hope, of strength, of the American way, and so forth, right? But anyway, what's important here, at least we can see Mr. Cavill in many films in the future here. Hopefully, more exciting films in the future here. Anyway, so that concludes another episode for our Business Focus Live here. Anyway, thanks again for watching. For more business news, stay here at Business Focus Live. Or maybe you can check out my other segment. You have Business Update, which I upload every Wednesday. So do check out that one. Anyway, if you enjoyed watching this video, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. As always, I'll see you in the next one. Same bad time, same bad channel. It's a Batman TV series reference, if you know what I mean. Anyway, take care.